Guys, we need to talk about Binance. There are some huge red flags circulating around this audit which Binance did to show that they have reserves, right? Their proof of reserves audit carried out by Mazars. We have started off the week with a bunch of FUD. Well, we could call it FUD. We're going to dive into whether it actually is FUD around whether Binance actually holds enough funds and whether this audit was actually an audit. We're going to go into exactly the details of this Mazars report to save you the pain of having to read through this whole audit as it's supposed to be to find out exactly what happened. But in order to do that, we first need to understand what was the purpose behind this? When did this all start? If you remember when the FTX collapse happened, CZ was one of the voices that came out in the forefront, and he said we should all do proof of reserves. And proof of reserves was basically saying if you hold customers' funds as an exchange, prove that you hold the funds which the customers have put on your exchange. Because remember, the whole FTX saga was that Sam Bankman-Fried was misappropriating and commingling customer funds. So CZ came out and said, we'll start the charge, we'll do an independent audit which shows that we hold all the assets we're supposed to. All the customer funds are sat there in wallets which we control, and we can give it back to you whenever you want it. Now, to save you the trouble, the initial audit shows that they hold 97% of the Bitcoin which is stored on Binance. So they don't actually hold all 100%. Now, if you take into account the little bit of complexity in terms of the loans that go out, they're showed to be 101% collateralized, okay? So that's on their Bitcoin holdings. Now, the interesting thing is that this audit, as it was called, cannot be called really an audit. I spent time in traditional finance, and a traditional audit, whilst I understand that Binance is a private company, and we'll come on to that shortly, they did this based on agreed upon principles. You need to understand that agreed upon principles basically means that there's no standard. I know here in the UK, there's accounting standards. In the US, there's accounting standards. And when you do an audit, you're held to those standards to see if you stack up or if you do not. Now, just because you're a private company, whilst you do not legally or statutorily have to hold yourself accountable to these standards, it's better for you when you're doing this audit to choose a standard to say, where do we stack up to? The fact that this was done on agreed upon principles, AUP, you can read it here. This AUP engagement is not an assurance engagement. Accordingly, we do not express an opinion. This is Mazars speaking. We do not express an opinion or an assurance conclusion. Had we performed additional procedures, other matters might have come to our attention that would have been reported. This is important because Mazars have to cover their backs as well. They can't say we did a full audit of Binance because they didn't. They did an exercise. And if you go into the report, which I have done, you can read the exact steps of what they did. Right? And you can read it. Obtain from the management the asset balance reports for the in-scope assets. Okay? Obtain from management a full listing of all in-scope assets. In other words, Binance, tell us which assets you want us to look at. We'll play a blind eye to any other assets. We're just going to focus on the ones you said. And by the way, the scope of this was just the Bitcoin holdings. We didn't get any stablecoin holdings. We didn't get any BNB holdings. We didn't get any BUSD. We didn't get Tether. We didn't get any other crypto assets. This was just Bitcoin, and it showed 97% with the loans and 101% collateralized once you take into account those loans as well. Okay, so that's where we're sitting. And you can see that this is it. They just followed the instructions they were providing. This is quite normal. A consultancy firm will do this for you. An accounting firm will do this for you on a consultancy basis. But this is not a full audit. This did not touch upon financial controls. It doesn't tell us anything about the robustness of the company. In fact, Binance couldn't even tell Mazars who their parent company was. So there is a lot of red flags that came about from this. And this is why you're seeing a lot of other platforms, including Wall Street Journal, Binance trying to calm investors, but its finances remain a mystery. You're seeing Cointelegraph leading to the Binance proof of reserve raises red flags. And we just circulate back to my video yesterday, because even as soon as yesterday, I've been saying this for a very long time, we've got to hold all of these platforms accountable. Even those, Wall Street Journal or Cointelegraph, I said that yesterday. Right? We cannot listen to any one journalistic output. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe Binance is completely fine. But we've learned from our mistakes with FTX, with Celsius, with Three Arrows Capital, with all the others that failed and had shoddy risk management practices. CZ and Binance should have no issue with any YouTuber, any journalist, anybody asking questions about this and digging deeper. And if I was CZ, if you have nothing to hide, give more. Do this audit very quickly for all cryptocurrencies, right? Why have you got an accounting firm like Mazars coming out and doing this on, agreed upon principles? Just let them have access to the books. You got nothing to hide, right? Whilst I understand you're a private company, over-index on transparency. And I think this is the theme of the day. If you want to back certain exchanges, or if you want to have certain belief in certain exchanges, look for the ones that are over-indexing on transparency. And while CZ did initially start this with a bit of that front, right, that I'm going to start with the proof of reserves, we're going to do the Merkle trees, and you guys can see that we hold your assets. These are the red flags which are starting to cause some problems now. You rather over-index on that transparency. So let's park that there for now, guys. Let's see where this heads to. I don't want to dig too much into it because the reality is it's not an indictment in a huge way. It's just some red flags which you should be aware of when you see these kinds of things. And that's why I've always said, do never put any exchange on a pedestal. Never put any individual, whether it's Brian Armstrong, whether it's CZ, whether it's anybody else, Ben Zhu from Bybit, whether it's FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried over at FTX, Do Kwon at Terra Luna. We do not need any Mavericks. We do not need any of these people to be held to some, crazy standard, because we've proven every time we have put someone on a pedestal, they've come out with more nefarious intentions and they've been bad for the crypto space as a whole. Bitcoin sitting here in this rising wedge formation, which remember is typically a bearish pattern. If you're not familiar with these types of patterns, you've got to head over to ijaz.uk/TA. Link is in the description. It's a completely free TA course, guys. This course will cost you thousands of dollars. Trust me, thousands of dollars. Go use it for free. It's not going to cost you a penny. Learn head and shoulders pattern, learn EMA ribbons, Fibonacci retracement, rising wedges and falling wedges, pennants, bull flags, doji candles. Everything is in there in that course. And can you imagine? It's completely free. So make use of that, guys. It won't be free forever. This is a bearish pattern. And the question now arises, we've got a couple of daily candles to print now before we get our CPI reading tomorrow. So we've got today's candle to finish, and tomorrow's candle, we will get that CPI reading. Go watch my video from yesterday outlining exactly what we expect from CPI and what we expect from Wednesday, when Jerome Powell comes out to speak. He's going to give us his decision of whether we have 50 base points or 75 base points. Remember, market still sitting firmly here, 75% plus of the market. It's notched down a little bit since yesterday. It was sitting at 78%. It's now 75% of the market expecting a 75 basis point rate hike. So a lot to play for this week, a critical week, and one where markets will be looking towards this interest rate decision with bated breath. If we look at the traditional markets, you can see here that traditional markets here on the pre-market are relatively trying to stay green, but it's relatively flat, 0.27 on the Nasdaq. And you can see that we're going to try to see whether we can have a positive week as we wait for this key inflation data. Let's also take a look here at the dollar index, because it's important to know that we are still inversely correlated to the dollar index, and you are seeing this continues to be in its downward trend here on the dollar index. This is the daily chart. You can see we're now well below our 200 exponential moving average, which is fantastic. But do not be surprised to see if CPI surprises in the wrong direction, to see this run up here. And that's the issue. That's where we will start to see Bitcoin struggling, is if we see this type of a run on the dollar index. In order for that to happen, we will need to have a shock inflation read, and we will need to have Jerome Powell being extra hawkish than we had previously expected. If we get the positive scenario playing out, then I want to see us get a nice run up back into the channel. And for me, the 18,700 level is a key level. There's two key levels, in fact, that I'm looking for here. The first, as I've been harping on about, is that 17,600 level. That's this yellow line here. That's your June lows. Remember when the Terra Luna saga happened, we fell to 17,600 and we held support of this level and bounced back quite powerfully. Since then, we've not retested it. And the worry now is when you have an important level like this, here, when you come like this and you create some support, the worry you have is once you breach that level, it can act as resistance and send you down. And that is what we want to avoid right now. What we want to do is not only get above 17,600, but work our way to 18,700 back in this channel, which we were in for a very long time. Remember, look at this channel, how long we spent in here. This is the channel we want to get back into, because this is now going to say that we have recovered from the FTX issue and we can get back to pre-FTX levels. Once we broke this level here, this was the FTX crisis. So whilst we're still in this pattern here, we're still reeling and still suffering from the knock-on effects of FTX and all the other ensuing things. I mean, even if you look at the Binance subject that we're leading from here, a lot of this came from the FTX trouble, right? We're still facing those worries, those fears, those doubts, and it's normal. Once you've seen this world's second largest exchange, FTX, collapse out of nowhere, we're bound to want to ask questions about Binance. We're bound to want to ask questions about all the other exchanges and all the other projects out there. And if we don't, we've got to ask ourselves, why? right? Because nobody else is going to do it for us. We covered yesterday how certain journalistic outlets, whether it's The Block, whether it's Coindesk, whether it's Cointelegraph, we don't know where they're being funded from, who they're getting donations from, who they're being supported by, who they're being paid by to run a certain piece. So we've got to do the work ourselves. We've got to investigate. We've got to look into these reports, and we cannot take things at face value anymore. We've got to question it. And if anybody has an issue with you questioning it, if you're tweeting or you're asking questions about a certain exchange or a certain project, just to actually be curious, not just spreading FUD for the sake of it, but actually being curious and asking questions. You said this in your report. Why didn't you look at this? Why was this not done? Why was this done on agreed upon principles? Why did you not touch upon financial controls? Why were other cryptocurrencies not in scope in your report? If you're asking sensible questions like that and you're constantly getting told, oh, you're just spreading FUD, you're just spreading FUD, for me, that's a next big red flag. And we've seen it with FTX. We saw it with Terra Luna. We saw it with Theoris Capital. They always say it's fine until it's not. And it's our responsibility to find out what's fine and what's not, because the reality is it's our money on the line. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash up the like button and subscribe if you appreciate this type of succinct content. Let me know in the comments. Go watch this video here, and I'll see you in the next one.